This is Chris French, Head of Technology, Infrastructure and Environment in the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences at the University of Liverpool.
And this is Jan Brett, Technical Development and Planning Officer at the University of Liverpool, and you are listening to the Academy's Developing Practice podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Academy's Developing Practice podcast. In this episode, we chat with Jan and Chris about their work with our technicians at the University of Liverpool. We hope you enjoy. Jan and Chris, we're really pleased to be speaking to you today. We're delighted to talk to you about your work with our technicians at the university. But before we get started, we love to get to know our guests a little bit more. So it'd be great to hear a bit about your background and how you've arrived in the positions you're in today at the university. So Jan, if we start with you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jan Brett. I'm the Technical Development and Planning Officer in the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences.
So I did my first degree at Sheffield Hallam University in biomedical technology, and it was really great because on that degree we got a chance to work for a year. So I did 6 months placement at the Northern General Hospital in their haematology lab. And then I also did 6 months in the Health and Safety Executive labs, which was fantastic. I then went on and did a master's degree in molecular genetics at Leicester University. And again, that had a significant placement. I worked at AstraZeneca in Loughborough for about 5 months where I did my master's project. So after I finished my master's, I worked as a research technician at Leicester Uni. I went and was also then a research assistant, so I kind of to and froed between the two types of jobs. And then I moved up to Nottingham for a bit, then actually went over all the way to Australia, worked at the University of Queensland for 3 years as their technical support officer. Came back to Liverpool and then got a job as a research technician, kind of jumped into being a technical manager over at Lea Hurst, where I led the research labs there and the technical team that supported them. So I worked there for 13 years. Then I had the opportunity, after a restructure, the directorates were formed. So our directorates, infrastructure, environment and technology, and Chris created a role as technical development and planning officer, where I was able to positively support all the technicians in our faculty. So I took it as a secondment first of all, and then moved into it fully in September 2021, and I love my job.
Great. Thanks, Jan. Chris, how about yourself?
Hi, Alex. Well, I think compared to Jan, I feel like a fraud and an interloper coming into this wonderful environment of technicians. So, no, I've done a bit of everything really. So, only 10 years at the university, and before that, I was 10 years in environmental consultancy. So, but before that, going all the way back, I was an undergraduate at Liverpool. I did my undergrad and PhD here in environmental pollution. A lot of work in the lab, a little bit of postdoc work, a little bit of lecturing work, which I wasn't very good at. So I jumped ship into the private sector for 10 years, working on, environmental consultancy projects, sustainability projects. To the latter of that sort of became more project management focused. And then interestingly was having a beer with one of my old profs and lambasting him for not being able to run research projects at all well. Academics just waste money and didn't really know what to do with it, how to manage it. And he said, well, there's some research project management roles coming up at the university. So the time was right for a change, and it was really great to come back to university that I've been involved with a lot, actually. I did a lot of work with the university when I was in consultancy, in innovation, in student placements, graduate recruitment, things like that. So an opportunity popped up in research policy to come and manage sort of large-scale research areas, and yeah, that was great to be back, great to be working with huge variety of people. And then, of course, I'm sure others on the podcast have reflected, once you're here at the university, lots of different opportunities kind of open up for you if you want them. So I was able to do a secondment in an operational management role, head of ops in the old Institute of Integrative Biology, then got a substantive post within the faculty. And then a couple of restructures later, found myself setting up the new Directorate of Technology, Infrastructure and Environment.
Fantastic. So have you always been based in the northwest of England with all of those roles?
No, not all of them. A bit like Jan, actually. And this might be a theme to come back to. I did a sandwich year, which I frequently kind of reflect that was one of the most powerful things in kind of shaping the things I ended up doing. Worked for the Forestry Commission down in leafy Farnham for a year, but was very happy to get back to the northwest after trying to live in the M25 belt for a year. No, I was lucky enough to work in Australia. I spent a year working in New Zealand as an environmental consultant, and in my 10 years in consultancy saw me travel around Egypt, Middle East, parts of Africa. It was great, but nothing like getting back to Liverpool, of course.
Brilliant. I take it I'm the only one who hasn't done a sandwich degree by the sounds of it.
I've not done a sandwich degree. You're all right.
So today we're talking about technicians. We're going to really focus our attention on our technical colleagues. So Chris, just tell me a little bit about your role as the Head of Technology, Infrastructure and Environment in the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences, and how that might feed into the technician commitments that we've heard about before on this podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Well, like I say, I think it'll be great. I think Jan and I will probably have some different views on this, which is great. And of course, one of the main things that I was able to do in setting up the directorate was to recruit Jan and invent this role that Jan finds herself in as technical and workforce kind of development officer. So I think as far as the technician commitment and a lot of other things that we've wanted to do with the technical community, in the past, these have always been quite diffuse. We've had institutes that have had really great things to offer. We've had precursors to the academy that have looked to kind of develop things with technicians, but we've never really managed to pull it together. And I think the one big thing that the directorate has done was to be able to sort of put Jan in that role, but through that, then be able to reach out and kind of create these really great communities of practice. Bringing the groups together, and I think allowing more of a focus not only on technician commitment but on other development and workforce opportunities as well. I think the other thing I'd say about the directorate is because we've got an APVC in Professor Ian Pryor who sits on our leadership team. Again, it's another conduit to be able to get some of these issues right to the top of faculty discussions really quickly. I think personally, I've never known people not buy into the kind of wanting to develop the technical workforce or recognizing what they do. But sometimes we've gone on a tortuous route to try and get that sort of embedded both as a university and as a faculty. So I think, now we have these more direct routes to our senior leadership. That's really helped get it on the map.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? So the will has always been there. I think I've heard lots of other people say that to me in the past as well. Colleagues in science and engineering have said that to me as well. Technicians still became a forgotten part of the workforce for a while. And then obviously on the back of that, it's hard to pick up maybe some of the work or the projects that could actually really benefit them as a result of that. Do you think that's fair, Chris? Do you think that's what's happened over the years? Across the sector, having worked in different areas?
I think so. I think, a bit like, all parts of the university are important, aren't they? Because, back to that kind of analogy of pieces of an orchestra. But I would say people like technicians and postdocs are the other ones I would put in there, are kind of really the engine and the powerhouse behind a lot of our day-to-day, certainly research activity and to a large extent teaching. And you're right. I think, they do a great job, and to some extent that is just accepted. And I think we will talk, I'm sure, later a bit about culture. I'll certainly be keen to bring in something about culture, because I think that culture is starting to shift nationally, internationally, and of course locally. And that's what the technician commitment about really recognizing how team science comes about how technicians are part of that really important culture of excellent research. And then I think where we have put the directorate in place, I know at the university we talk in fairly loose terms about this matrix management type structure, that really we should be able to manage across and up and down, and it shouldn't matter which institute you're in or which department or whatever. And I'm not saying we've bottomed out all the issues to that, but I think in the directorate we've been able to create a little bit more of that kind of structure. And again, massive credit to Jan for actually kind of doing the hard work on this, whereby we've got, technical managers don't report to me, they report into their institutes, but we have enough of a relationship that I can bring those group of people together. Jan can bring some of our technical leaders and technical managers together, and really create something quite powerful to advocate for that sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Jan, it sounds like your role, from what Chris is saying, is a linchpin for technical services, really. So it makes complete sense to me that you are heading up the technical network at the university. So you can not only have that sort of those links between areas within the faculty that you're in, but actually across the whole of the university as well. So just tell us a little bit about the network, Jan, if you can. So what are you trying to achieve?
Well, yeah, I do think looking after the technical network really sort of complements the role that I've got in the directorate. So, it's all about working together, working across departments, institutes, faculties. But I don't do it alone. We've got a fantastic steering group that look after the network. And they are made up of technicians from around the university that help. We all organise, plan events, but we're always looking for more help. So if anyone's listening and wants to join in. So really our aims is to show everyone how wonderful and valuable we are as a workforce and have opportunities to showcase the work that we do. We've got around 650 staff on a technical contract, so we're really quite a large, diverse workforce in the university. When we come together, as we say, even in the directorate, it's great to be working with all our technical managers, and we've moved away from that silo working really, but it's all about sharing best practice and working together, making sure everybody's got equal opportunities for development and to progress. So that's really the aims of my role in the directorate and when I'm looking after the full technical network as well.
Do you find then, Jan, that since the technical network came into being, I think, was that 2019 or 2020, was it? That was formed?
Yeah, so I think Tony Topping was chair of the network then. He did a really great job working with you guys in the academy to get that set up in response to technicians' commitment work. So, I think I took over from it around, summertime last year. So, yeah.
Have you found more instances of that sort of sharing of best practice through the network? Are you seeing those things growing as a result?
Yeah, we're getting there. It has been difficult, obviously, in recent times and not being able to sort of physically get together. But, even through the network, we have just little solutions to problems. Somebody was looking for dry ice the other day and, through the contacts that we had, we'd be able to find that for him at 5:00 on a Friday afternoon, So I think it's just about, it needs to still continue and grow for sure, and to get more and more engagement from the technical network. I think at the moment, sometimes people think it's not really relevant to them, but it absolutely is. We've got a huge different types of technical staff around the university, from the traditional lab technicians to colleagues in, School of Arts, workshop technicians. Everybody is welcome to join together, and everybody's got something to share and pass on as far as knowledge goes.
I'm trying not to have culture as the answer to everything today, but it is something that I think just is a thread that runs through all of this. So Jan talked there about the technician network, and right, it's has the potential to be really powerful. But I think one of the things that's sort of stopping people coming forward again is the culture that we need to have across the university, that we can all work across those kind of very artificial boundaries that we sometimes impose on ourselves. And we struggle with that even within the faculty, let alone before we get out of it. So, there is a culture in some areas, not everywhere, which we need to work hard to break down, which is, if you're working for your individual PI or your individual prof, or, your very, very special research group, that is your job, and you don't need to look anywhere outside of that. And for some people, that's important, and that's where they want to be. But actually, for a lot of others, with a very porous market and career opportunities, kind of allowing yourself to be part of a wider culture and a wider network is really important. So I think we've got work to do to kind of break down some of those cultural barriers about technicians belonging to particular areas or shoehorned into particular roles or stereotyped into particular areas.
And I guess some of what you're saying there, Chris, around culture then informs our commitment to technicians. And back in 2020, pre-pandemic, we had a chat on the podcast with Paul Gilbert, one of our technical managers, about the technicians' commitment and how it was progressing back then. I'm just wondering if COVID then caused problems for that progress, as it did with so many other projects, and how have those issues now been progressed?
I think COVID was a really interesting time for the technical community. So you were right. In one instance, it really did stop a lot of the development work that we were working on, the technician commitment, some of the plans that the very new, the directorate that only really came into being in the middle of the COVID pandemic wanted to do. So that was difficult, because I think we did feel hamstrung about what we could realistically do. However, COVID, more than anything else, just really shone a spotlight on the work that our technical workforce was doing, and what it was able to do and how it was able to adapt. So a lot of our technical staff weren't working from home. They were in all the way through the very first lockdown. They were being asked to do roles that they'd never done before, because they were the only people on campus. They were supporting work that was nationally and internationally significant, and rightly being credited with that. And when we saw our media stars like Callum Semple and Tom Solomon on the breakfast sofa, they were talking about work that our technicians had been doing in the lab. So I actually think that may have given us a springboard coming out of COVID to sort of really put technicians on the map. That said, it's also caused problems, because technicians were so good and so adaptable. We found them covering a lot of different roles that now actually they find themselves difficult to shift in some areas. And that's more of an operational issue we need to address. But, when we don't have so many people on campus, we do find it's technicians that sometimes pick up the slack in a number of different ways, which drags them away from their normal role.
I'm going to jump in now as well and say absolutely, our technicians were vital in responding to the pandemic. So not only in closing down areas and making them safe for reopening and people to come back on to campus to engage in teaching activities and research, but we had a huge number of technical staff that redeployed into supporting COVID research, as you say. And it was just wonderful to see that, and to see the acknowledgement downstream of just how vital the technicians are. So sort of alongside that, we were still making quite a lot of progress in supporting the aims of our technicians' commitment. So I think we had a whole feature on the work that our technicians did to respond to COVID in our Technically Speaking magazine, which was great because it really helped to raise visibility again. Technical network events and technical leaders forums all carried on as well through the pandemic. So we all stayed connected as best we could in such difficult times, even though it was online for most of that. I think at the same time, when we had some staff maybe with a bit more free time at home, we had a number of technicians that worked together to go through professional registration with the Science Council. So professional registrations, validation of your skills and competency. We had 5 people that went through that, and our numbers are growing at Liverpool. I mean, we're really lucky that we're supported financially through the first year of the process through the academy. And I think it's really important that we promote this. Having recognised and highly qualified technical staff is good for the organisation as well as the individual technician. So, that was carrying on at the same time as well. And I think just generally, people started working together a lot more during the pandemic, which was great.
Thinking back now, when I think about that technically speaking edition that went out to highlight the work of the technicians during COVID, it was the most read edition, and it was the largest edition we'd ever produced, because the amount of stories that we were getting back were huge, really, compared to what we normally pick up on. Things like people dropping what they were doing and making face masks, high quality face masks as well. Not just, I won't just say like, these were proper visors that were being made. The alka gel. There was people raising money for charity at that point, creating a Christmas single. I think you're right. It really did shine a light on the expertise of technicians, and also on that adaptability of technicians, without a shadow of a doubt. Just talking about where we go in the future. You've both been advocates for the work of the National Technicians Development Centre. So that this is an entity that came into being only around about 5 years ago, and has since sort of amalgamated into HEATED, which support technical development. So obviously you've both been advocates of their work, and now we're finally getting underway with a skills audit survey for our own technical staff at the University of Liverpool. So what do you hope the benefits will be in conducting that sort of activity?
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. Just to say, I'm really pleased that we're now partnered with the NTDC, and we're now part of a bigger sort of national technical family, and they're a really wonderful bunch of people that want to help and support us. So that's a wonderful thing for me. So I think the survey is not something to worry about. It's a development tool. It's not a performance management tool. So I think it's going to bring so many benefits, some that we've touched on around identifying skill sets and things that are unique to Liverpool. But it will also help us put some targeted, really relevant training in place. I think when the technicians complete the survey, it'll help them to feel seen, heard and valued, which ties in with our technicians' commitment. And through that, we'll be able to identify our real strengths and areas of best practice, which we could then possibly look at in-house training and shadowing and placements. I think for me, really, the hidden or unused skills that we'll find out about is a massive deal, because I think we've got a real huge potential resource available that we can tap into that we're not aware of. So I'm really excited to see that.
I mean, Jan will know I was a bit more sceptical, I think, about this when it was first mooted. Although I would happily say I've been converted and very much on board with this, to the extent, as you know, Matt, of nagging you and James and others to make sure we had a seat at the table here. I think I was concerned originally. I suppose I've seen several sort of higher education Quango type development groups pop up and come and go over the years, and some have been really good, and some have sort of taken money in subscriptions and not really delivered. So I suppose that was the level of skepticism. However, like anything else, I think once you understand who's part of that network and who's engaging with it, so there are now so many of our sort of peer universities that we work with a lot. I'm thinking of the likes of York and Newcastle and Sheffield that are fully engaged with the NTDC. It really is sort of gaining a huge amount of traction. So yeah, Jan's hit on some of the key parts of this skills audit. I mean, I think for me, there's just some really basic things like consistency. We struggled for as long as I can remember to do really good, consistent skills audits and the associated development that would follow from that across our faculty. Every institute has taken it on very, very differently, and we've all then come together and said our spreadsheet doesn't match your spreadsheet. We would really like, what are these people who's got a skill in this particular area, but we haven't updated our spreadsheet for 2 years, so this will be a wonderful, consistent way of collecting that data. I think Jan touched on it in her answer, but I think for me, it's not so much about what we find about hidden skills, although I think we will find that out. I think we'll also find out what skills people don't have and where we need to invest maybe quite heavily. The way we do research and teaching is changing so quickly at the moment. It's so dynamic. The role of technicians is really dynamic. I know we'll talk later about some of that sort of breadth, but I think we will find skills in there that we really want, that we think we have, that we don't, and that will be really powerful for the university, because we'll be able to sort of focus investment in staff or investment in training, or both in those areas. And I think the final thing for me, I mean, there are loads, so we could spend the whole podcast doing this, because it's such a good thing, but it's going to allow us to kind of work with other universities across the country, but certainly across the N8 group. Initially, we already have a project sort of mooted where actually we'll be able to look and sort of compare skill sets and areas and demographic sort of issues. And this is massive when you think about the sort of levelling up agenda. So I don't know if we still call it levelling up, or quite what the current government spin is, but whatever you call it, there is a real demand in the north for technicians and technical expertise across sectors like life sciences, pharma, and others. They are seen as the bedrock of some of the growth that the region wants to do. So actually, quite excitingly, across universities should be seen as breeding grounds for technicians and for staff that will go on and work in industry as well. So this is going to be a really big sort of macroeconomic type piece of work, to be able to see what skills are needed in the region and what employers need, and how universities might play their part in driving the growth agenda, which all sounds very grand, but I think it's genuinely a great opportunity.
Do you think there, Chris, that we'd be able to do placements in other N8 institutions as well, and swap technical staff like that?
I absolutely do. I mean, I think, as you know, with my frustration at the pace of things in general, I think, I'd love to be doing that already. And I know in some areas, actually, we have done that. And the technician fund that's run out of the academies and enabled us a little bit to be able to do some cross-training in specialist facility areas, but not as much as we might routinely like. And, we look a little bit further south to what's going on in the Midlands and the programs they've put in place there, where they have quite successfully sort of created, again, a culture of being able to share staff across institutions. And I'd love that we would come back and do a podcast in, 6 to 12 months' time, being able to talk about how this had been one of the really key outcomes of that.
I think that's right, isn't it? I think we're looking at launching the survey around the end of March next year, aren't we, Matt? And I think it's going to take some time to analyse the data from that and put some plans into place. But certainly the next 12 months look really exciting for our technical staff, and really encourage everybody to please take part in the survey. I think it'll only take 30 to 60 minutes, but as you can hear, it's going to be so valuable for us all to take forward.
So it seems like the next 6 months are incredibly exciting for you, with the survey and everything else that you've, all three of you've described in terms of the network and the work that's going on. I'm just wondering, what are the challenges for our colleagues in technical roles at the moment, both within our university, but also across the sector?
Yeah, so recruitment's been an issue for us, and that's an issue nationally. It's not just localised to us at Liverpool, but people have had real difficulty in recruiting to technical posts since the pandemic, and possibly people just want to stay put while it's been such an uncertain time. But we have done a bit of work looking at the language that we're using in our technical job descriptions, as well as thinking about where we're putting those adverts out. As we've come out of COVID and we're able to get out and about a little bit more, we've started doing some outreach into schools and colleges, which I think is now more important than ever, because the kids just don't know about being a technician and think that university is there just for you to come and be a student, but you can come and work here. So we've been going out and talking to them about being a technician as a career choice, and we're starting to do that a little bit more, and I'm hoping to get more support through the network from that as well. But we've also been working with a local college in Birkenhead who have started to run T-levels, which are vocational training as an alternative to A-levels. So one T-level is the same as 3 A-levels. And in that, the students have to have a 45-day placement. So we've been working with Birkenhead Sixth Form College to see if we can provide some placements for their students to come in and work with us and get some real life hands-on skills, which means, you know, that if they're going to be hopefully technicians of the future, then when they come to apply for jobs with us, they're going to stand out as being, you know, ahead of the crowd because they've already got 9 weeks real life experience. So we're really hoping we get some students to come and work with us. We'll find out soon, and if they do, they'll be with us from January next year. So that's exciting, and I think that's going to help as well with our recruitment issues nationally going forward as T-levels are rolled out.
I think, I mean, one of the other things just operationally that Jan didn't mention there that I alluded to earlier on is that I think our workforce is pretty tired. It's been busy constantly, non-stop, and I know lots of people have, and I know there's kind of an ebb and flow of work at the university. But I do, you know, look and talk to a lot of technicians in a lot of areas, and I think, you know, they are the ones that are on campus all day, every day, supporting that range of work. So I think in the context of hybrid working, we've actually got a little bit to look at more immediately to kind of check that, you know, we're not putting too much emphasis, or we're not putting too much operational responsibility on some of these roles. The way our new hybrid model is kind of falling out. I think that's important. I think there's a number of issues around workforce planning as well. I mean, Jan alluded to some of them there. You know, we've missed 2 or 3 years of recruitment almost because of COVID. So we've come out of that now and are kind of looking at some of the sort of the demographic of the workforce in terms of, you know, some of our grade distribution and roles and gender and ethnicity. I think all of those, they're the things that are sort of, I suppose, at a more strategic level that we know we need to be looking at. I think career progression is another issue for a lot of technical staff, and you know, again, I know we've done huge amounts on this in recent times with the technician commitment, but I think, you know, sometimes the way we have things set up at the university, people aren't aware of the opportunities available to them, or feel frustrated that they can't progress out of a particular band or a particular role. So we could do a lot more about making that process easier. And, you know, we're fingers crossed within the next few months looking to roll out the research technical pathway, you know, which is taken some time to get to, but which has been looking at that area that blurs postdoctoral and technical expert type roles, where, you know, people are not just a technician, nor are they just a postdoc, nor are they a facility manager, nor are they a technical expert. There's a real opportunity for career progression there, and to be involved in so many more areas. And, you know, having a pathway from grade 6 up to grade 10 that's open to postdoctoral type staff and to technical staff and to, you know, others that might come onto that is going to be fairly sector leading, I think, and it's taken quite a lot of work by quite a lot of people here at the university to get to that point. Once we just get it over the line, I think that's going to be a really huge opportunity.
So it's really interesting, some of the things that you've both been saying there, particularly around the workforce planning element. Obviously, one of my hopes for the survey is that we get some true and rich workforce planning data that we can use to look at our workforce, our technical workforce, not only in terms of the skills that they have, but the sort of demographics that we have in that workforce. You know, their age, where we might have particular risks in terms of losing skills going forward, and how we feed the talent pipeline, maybe with apprentices on the back of that. The challenge is, I guess, from somebody who sits outside of technical services, is that there's so many different roles. There's so many different technical roles across the university.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. I mean, and we've alluded to this, I guess, a few times through this podcast. But of course, you know, I suppose the perception, which I think still exists, of the technician, you know, being at the bench in a white coat, kind of pipetting liquid from one test tube to the other, frequently portrayed by the media, I would add as well, is a key part of the role, but it's not the only part of the role. So obviously we now have technicians doing that kind of work, but we have animal technicians, we have veterinary technicians, we have farm technicians, we have people that spend a lot of their day in technical roles coding or analyzing data or putting algorithms together to look at interpreting visual images coming off microscopes or scans. We have technical staff that are very, very specialized, involved in running really high-end equipment, which is changing almost day by day in some of our areas. And we have really core skills, which interestingly are one of the ones where we're most at risk of potentially losing staff. So I'm thinking of things like our workshop staff, those skills gained over years and years and years about being able to fix equipment, to build bespoke equipment, to be able to sort of deal with the infrastructure that we have in our buildings, just kind of getting the stuff working so that all the research and teaching groups can do that. So yeah, I think the range of roles has kind of really exploded. And I'm just talking about our faculty here. I haven't really sort of lent on, I know Jan's mentioned it a bit, but about what's available in other faculties where they have just as much diversity. So this sort of whole process will really, I think, flush out all of those roles. And anything we can do to promote that variety is going to be really important to workforce planning.
Well, thanks, Chris and Jan. It's been great to chat to you and to hear so much about the work that you're doing with technicians. This podcast is called the Developing Practice Podcast, and we like to finish each recording with a couple of take-home tips that the listeners can reflect on in terms of their own personal practice. So if you could leave us with a couple of tips for us to go away and think about, what would they be? Jan, if we start with you.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd just like to say thanks for inviting me along today. I mean, technicians are amazing and we all need to take every opportunity to tell people about this. For my tips, I would say, don't be afraid to move around the university to different departments or even faculties. I think as technicians, we've got lots of transferable skills that are applicable everywhere. So really grab opportunities as they come up, even if it's a sidestep into a different role of the same grade. It's really good to get lots of different experiences if you want to progress. And from a personal point of view, I would just say, please get involved with the technician network as much as you can. We're a great bunch of people that are very friendly and helpful. What we've got strength in numbers, and the more the merrier.
Well, I haven't got four, unfortunately. I've only been able to kind of think of two. But I'm going to get my final say on culture. So I suppose I've kept mentioning this, much to everyone's boredom, I'm sure. But I think it's only really in the last sort of year or so I've really understood, I think, what that phrase "culture eats strategy for breakfast" sort of really means, said by that famous management consultant, whenever it was. And this is because I think I look at the kind of people we've got across our workforce and kind of think, actually, the way that they operate and understanding how they operate and work together is far more important than any sort of overarching strategies and things that we might have. So the concept's been out for long enough now around team science to understand that if you sort of respect and value all of those people in your team, whether that be a research team or a teaching team, that actually the work that they produce, what they want to do is work in an excellent culture. And I think we have some of that, but I don't think we have necessarily spent the time at working out how we develop that. So that's really my big sort of thing at the moment, alongside others, just working out how we can just nudge the culture in some areas, and in other areas we might have to change it a little bit more fully. That means engaging with, a whole range of people that we work with, everyone from the sort of illustrious PI, through to the junior technicians that work in the team and everyone in between. So I'm really keen to engage with the likes of UKRI, who are really sort of pushing a lot around research culture at the moment and working out what that means for our technicians and how that's going to help. And my other point, I think, would be around agility. And I suppose it's kind of similar to the one that Jan mentioned, which is just around, don't be afraid to try something and break it. I think one of the things when we set up the directorate was I'm not saying we didn't know what we were doing, but it was a brand new directorate. I mean, we hadn't had, technical services, technical platforms, infrastructure, faculty environment, kind of all rolled into one before. So I think we've done really well in just trying lots of different things, and some of them have worked really well, and some of them haven't worked so well. But that agility, I think, at the moment, while the sector is in flux, while there are different competing demands of funders and of our partners in certain areas, just the ability to kind of be able to say, well, that looks really interesting, let's try that. And if I will give an example if I've got time, because we haven't mentioned it in here, and Jan deserves a huge amount of credit for this. So it wasn't that long ago, it's probably only a year and a half ago, we had one of our academics come and say, look, I've seen this stuff around sustainability in labs. We think it's a really good idea. It's a program called LEAF, Laboratory Sustainability. And we'd been looking at it as well for a while, but it'd been COVID and kind of was it the right time? Was it the wrong time? And I think just Jan and I between us just made a bit of a leap of faith and said, well, look, let's just try it. Let's just pilot it. Let's find 10 labs who are interested and see what we can do. And mainly through, really great technicians and really great PIs who were really, engaged in this. We did this pilot for lab sustainability and it went really well. And then science and engineering came along and they wanted to put 10 labs into it. And then we wrote a little report, which the university really liked and said, well, let's just do LEAF everywhere and make it our sort of lab sustainability infrastructure. So none of that would have happened, I think, unless we'd have just thought, well, we'll roll with this and see where it happened. And it could have fallen flat on its face after 2 weeks, but it didn't. So it's just another really poignant example of where just trying something can have really, really positive and long-lasting benefits.
Brilliant. What a great example. Thanks for your time today, Chris and Jan. That's been a really, really good chat. Thanks for catching.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. One of the things that really stood out to me was when they were talking about how COVID shone a light on the work of our technicians, who not only kept parts of the university open during the pandemic, but were essential in much of the research into fighting the outbreak. And I think it was Chris who mentioned that he sees technicians as the engine or powerhouse of universities. So it's important that we look after them in the same way that we might a physical engine.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's something that's really interesting in terms of looking after that physical engine. I think also one thing that I picked up on from our conversation, which I want to reflect further on, is that there is often a culture in universities of invisible boundaries. And I know that we at Liverpool are working really hard to break these down. Technicians working together through the technical network is one way in which we're helping to break down these barriers. Well, if you'd like to take your thinking further, we've added some resources to the website on a specific podcast reading list, which you can access at liverpool.ac.uk/the-academy/podcast. We also really love to hear what you think about our episodes, so please do tweet us at LivUniAcademy, and you can also find us at eLearnerMatt or at Alexandra_Owen on Twitter.
And we're really grateful for those who have taken the time to either rate or review our show in your podcast provider's app. So if you haven't done so already, please do take the time to review our show, or even better, simply share the episode with friends and colleagues on your social media. Bye for now.